All right. Welcome, everyone. This is a school board of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. We've been in closed session since 6 p.m. We are now on item 5, Pledge of Allegiance. Steve, would you lead us here?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to item 6, recognition of visitors. Is there anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized? And then as you approach your podium, just state your name and municipality, please. Thank you.
Good evening, honorable school board. My name is Joe Roll. I live in Clifton Township. I just wanted to reiterate the points that I made at your last monthly meeting around my parental opinion of early release on Mondays. So I sent you a little bit of Wisconsin DPI data, and it clearly shows that if you look at the district across the board, that our students, the bottom 50%, suffered from not having face-to-face instruction through the pandemic. And I recognize that this Board of Education that did the best it could to support all of the students of the district through those times. But if you look at data from all school districts, you'll see a theme there. Test scores went down in the pandemic, and in math and science, and especially on the bottom 50% of performers. Your top 10% of performers kind of were resilient through all of it. Maybe they have a different learning style or skill set. I can only speak as a parent, but it's apparent to me that it's very important for our children to be in front of teachers. And I'm against shortening the school year by 30 instructional hours of face-to-face in order to pursue Mike Kosmolsky's vision of integrating studies across buildings and collaboration. I was impressed with his presentation. I think his ideas are great, and I think it's something the district should pursue. However, you should come up with a way to do it without doing an early release on Mondays. So I leave you with that tonight as you look forward at that. I know that request is on the agenda, and I would just ask you to do what was released in a memo rather early this week. If truly we have a student-centric point of view now, which I always thought we did, then let's do what's best for students. Let's keep them in front of teachers. Teachers are high value to us parents. They're high value to our students. And as a taxpayer, I think it's the best use of our limited resources. I'll also say that I'm more than willing to pay more taxes to give these teachers the time to do this collaboration. So if it means that you pay them for 3 more days than what was planned, I would expect that you could dig into your general fund and figure out a way to do it. So anyway, thank you and good luck tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Jay Walter, Clifton Township. Good evening. Over the past month, I've been working with Ken Anderson on his campaign for school board. From the research I've done, there are a couple things I'd like to present to you tonight. You are considering a $15 million facilities referendum to invest in our buildings. There's a lot of information about the cost and financing of the referendum that has not been provided, so I've come up with some best guesses to try and fill in the blanks. Say the financing term is 15 years with an interest rate of 5.5%. I'm going to give broad ranges here because of the lack of information I have. But the annual repayment cost would be between $1 million and $1.5 million per year. In 1 year, the interest expense would be between $550,000 and $800,000. The total cost over the term could be $4.8 million to $7 million. You have stated that property taxes will not increase if the referendum passes. If we can fund this kind of investment and pay this kind of interest without increasing taxes, I believe it would be safe to assume that If we did not, taxes would go down. Based on this estimated annual cost of the referendum, property taxes could decrease maybe by 10% across the district if the referendum does not pass. Now, I'd like to shift away from facilities and talk about people inside our buildings. According to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, Prescott ranks close to last compared to districts within an hour's drive of Prescott on average teacher salary. The Hudson, Baldwin-Woodville, St. Croix Falls, New Richmond, Osceola, River Falls, Amory, Boyceville, Menominee, Spring Valley, St. Croix Central, Ellsworth, and Glenwood City School Districts have average teacher salaries higher than Prescott. Plum City and Durand are the closest districts I could find with lower teacher average salaries. Amory's average teacher salary, for example, is 9.3% higher than Prescott. I realize that our teachers are not teaching in Prescott to maximize their earnings, but because they are committed to our kids. I am CFO and chairman of the board of a company with 800 employees, and I can tell you that over the course of the last year, there is not one topic that our leadership team has discussed more than compensation. We have a saying that I hear or say every day: we are only as good as our people. I hope our district is having similar conversations, and I bet our neighboring districts are. I've looked through the Prescott District's 2020 to 2021 budget report in detail. Based on the information in the budget report, for between 50 to 85% of the cost of interest in 1 year of the referendum financing, between 20% to 45% of the annual interest and principal payments on the referendum financing, we could raise average teacher pay to the level with Amory. If we could do this, and my estimates are correct, property taxes could potentially still go down, compared with not increasing if we pass a facilities referendum or decreasing if we do not pass a facilities referendum. We would then at least be somewhat competitive with average teacher salaries compared to nearby districts on our side of the river. I am here tonight because as a father of 5, I'm very afraid of this referendum passing. Competition for hiring and retaining talented teachers will only get tougher over the years, especially in the years to come. If we pass this referendum, we will sentence Prescott to the bottom of the local rankings for average teacher salaries for the entire term of the payback. I respect all of you for the time you put into serving on this board, and if my estimates are off and you'd be willing to sit down and go through some details, I'd be more than happy to meet with you. I ask that you shift your focus from investing $15 million in district buildings and focus on investing a fraction of that towards the people in those buildings. I believe that investment will have much more positive impact on our children's experience and achievement. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Taslin Magnuson. I mom to 2 kids in high school. Yeah, kids have suffered under the pandemic. I can't give you details about our family because it's their business, my kids' business, but I can say it's been the hardest 2 years of our life with school. But kids can't do well in school if their teachers need things. So tonight I want to talk to you about the teachers. We've seen it on the news, in our own families, and in the schools. Teachers are working so hard. Let's be honest, their jobs were massive long before a pandemic hit. Our Prescott teachers continue to show up and do the educational and emotional work with our kids, my kids. They're making a difference day in and day out. You know how I know this? I talk to the kids. My kids, the kids in the neighborhood. We walk our dogs every day, and as they try desperately to pet the nice orange fluffy one, and our other dog barks nonstop, I ask these kids about how they're doing. They talk about school. They talk about library time, math time, ELA. One little girl told me that she loved library more than anything because it was quiet time. They tell me about their favorite teachers, their friends that they get to see at school. School is an essential part of their day, and that's because of the teachers and the staff. I think this is important to share with you tonight, even though I'm pretty sure you all believe this too, because I see a lot of negative in the world, and I want to be part of the positive. Those teachers asked for something last month and say it will make a significant difference for them and thus for all the kids that they teach and care for. And I want to say yes to that. We are a community and we are responsible to each other. When someone asks, I believe, as a member of the Prescott community, I need to listen. My hope for the board tonight is that you too will say yes. Say yes to the early release on Mondays. Say yes to what the teachers say they need. Please give them the tools they need right now to be the teachers our kids need and deserve. Gift them the time that they need. Thanks.
Thank you, Tassim. Is there anybody else that would care to be recognized at this time?
My name is Craig Tice. I'm from Oak Grove. It's my first time here before you guys, and I want to thank all of you for what you do. With that being said, I think like a lot of people, I'm pretty, I guess, disappointed with the idea that we're going to take kids out of school. They need the instruction. The idea that we're going to congregate them together and have playtime rather than structure seems to set them back farther than what we're doing to try and move them ahead. And while I realize that, and like it's been brought up before, the idea of giving teachers the opportunity to conduct additional trainings at additional expense later on seems most beneficial. With that being said, one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention is that when the email was sent out requesting what the kids do during the 2-hour period, what it told me is that you guys haven't fully delved into the ramifications or maybe what other options are. In that email, it very easily could have been a survey of what the parents wanted to see as far as whether or not they wanted a 2-hour early release. That wasn't in there. You guys take a full encompassing look on what the parents want, and with that information, then move forward. But I think right now we're moving a little bit too fast ahead without getting the full scope of what people truly feel about this. So, thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Anybody else care to be recognized? All right, thank you. Let's move on. Item 7 is good news around the district.
And we'll start with our student representative.
All right, our student council has a meeting coming up on Friday morning where we will be starting our Snowfest planning. That will be happening like early February, so we're getting pretty excited about that. We also started drafting our letter to the 26 districts that still use Indian mascots. We definitely have a long way to go with that, editing and just running it by a lot of people, but we're very excited to get that moving. And then we also have, this is kind of separate from our student council, but kind of intertwined, our new inclusivity group. We're looking to connect with an inclusivity group in the community, and we are jumping on our project of those inclusivity bracelets coming up. So a lot of exciting things coming up here in the next couple months.
And our administrative team is going to come up. We'll begin with high school.
Good evening, Josh Viggy, high school. I'll keep it brief tonight, but some of the pictures that you see in the background, actually I'll say congratulations to Emily Calabrese, the Teacher of the Year for Prescott, recognized by the Chamber of Commerce, and very well deserving, serving at the high school as a coach and advisor and mentor to kids, so I'm very proud of her. But some of the other things that you see behind you coming up in the next pictures, the past few weeks we've hosted our first enrichment days or enrichment Fridays at the high school.
our goal at the beginning of the year, and we worked with a number of different teacher groups, was creating relationships, building community and connections in different ways with students. So you can see we've worked really hard to offer kind of a diverse offerings for students. They range from intramural opportunities to clubs, enrichment opportunities, and even then some hands-on things. And so we've been engaged in those the past few weeks, and this week, Friday, we'll start a new cycle of those. And the feedback so far has been really good from our teachers and our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Good evening, folks. Kyle Igo, Prescott Middle School. As the pictures were scrolling through, I need to congratulate our second round of Spelling Bee students. We had 15 students move on to round 3. Round 3 will be on January 26th. Those 15 will then compete to represent our school. And the top of that 15 will then go on to represent our school. We are right in the midst of our Fast Bridge testing, our mid-year kind of our checkpoint and our balance area. Once we get our data from our math and language arts Fast Bridge test, we'll go ahead and be meeting with the district office to recheck and look at our goals, make sure that we're on the right track. Our teachers are going to start to dig into that data on Monday, our professional development day. And along with our professional development day on Monday, I would like to thank the board in supporting our purchase of the disciplinary literacy package from CISA. They're going to be down and providing our teachers with a 4-hour in-service, and it should be a great day.
Thank you.
Mark Inuit, Director of Student Services. This good news is more of a look ahead. Next week, we will offer our first round of mental health screening for our 9th grade students. That will be January 19th and 20th. And then in February and March, we will also do the 7th graders and the 11th graders. So we are excited to continue to offer this great opportunity to get a little kind of mental health and social emotional checkup. And really excited for this coming up opportunity. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Andrew Caudill, Director of Activities. Our winter sports are off to a tremendous start. If you had a chance to come to the basketball game last night, we had a full house, tremendous game against a really good team. Boys did a great job, and we took some time at halftime to honor our state award winners, and we unveiled the girls golf banner, so that was pretty cool. Girls basketball has a big game on Friday against Baldwin. Winner will be in first place. Boys wrestling had a number of individual accolades. Sam Murphy's ranked 9th in the state, and Alex Heiberg and Benny Olson are currently getting honorable mention in the state rankings. And the last bit of good news that I have, we found out last week that Prescott has been selected to host the Minnesota-Wisconsin boys basketball border battle next year. So thousands of people usually come to that event. So it'll be tremendous for our program to showcase ourselves, and some of the best teams and players around both states will be coming to Prescott. It'll be tremendous for our economy to have that many people come here. So that'll happen on January 21st, 2023. Thank you.
That's awesome, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. I just have 3 quick things behind me, just in recognition. January is the month that we set aside within the state to appreciate school board members, and we'll talk a little bit further later in the meeting about the elections coming up in April. Obviously, there's a lot of dedication time that you all put in on the benefit of helping direct the future of our young youth and our organization. I just wanted to, on behalf of our staff, students, and parents, thank you for all the time that you put in. Second, next week, the Chamber of Commerce is having its celebration of different people, business partners, but we do have an Educator of the Year, Emily Calabrese. There are tickets available, and we would encourage people to come out and support the Chamber's dinner. And then finally, in the back, I just wanted to recognize Katie. And I think one of the elves stopped by. Hopefully there was a little bag back there? It's still there. So you and Tom at the end, make sure that you go home together and enjoy. So just wanted to thank Katie personally for all the support that she's done, keeping us and me specifically grounded over the last 12 months. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rick. We'll move on to the business. We're on item A, consent agenda. In the consent, we have board minutes, board checks, and then we have non-licensed personnel, retirement, resignation, employment change of non-licensed staff. Is there anything in the consent that anybody would like to have removed?
I don't see anything to remove. I just want to echo Katie. We'll miss you. It's been a great year. Your color coordination of paper for Mike has been fantastic. And I wish you well in what I believe I've heard you term your dream job. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks, Katie.
Katie, I'd echo that. I've had a lot of conversations. We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the last year, and you've been very professional to work with, very fun to work with. You've done an amazing job with the district, and you know, I know you're going to a place that you're really excited, and it's a job in your wheelhouse, and you're going to do great at it. You're very passionate about it, but you're going to really be missed by the district. But with that said, congratulations and good luck. Really mean that. Thank you. All right, so nothing to be removed from consent. I will adopt the consent agenda. Is there any objections? Seeing as there are no objections, the consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. We'll move on to item B, new hires, employment, retirement, resignation of licensed staff.
Yes, we have one teacher that we are putting forward for hire, consideration of Caden Geiger for the position of our 8th grade math teacher at the middle school.
Any questions from the board? Okay, can consider a motion.
I'll move to approve the hiring of Caden Geiger for the position of 8th grade math teacher.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item 2 is retirement.
We have no retirements put forth as of this month.
Okay, and item 3, resignation.
We do have 2 resignations. The first is a special education teacher at Malone Intermediate, Matt Sachs, and then Cassie Smith, middle school, grade 8 math.
Questions, comments? Anyone?
You know, I'll just say I haven't had a chance to get to know Cassie Smith, but I've had a chance to get to know Matt a little bit through his coaching efforts within the district and just being, I think, a good team member of the special education group as well. So he'll be missed. I wish him the best in his future.
He actually, I think, did he student teach in our district or his first year?
Student teach, but he was a TA and then he moved into a teaching role.
He was in my daughter's classroom, so I've known him since he was brand new here, and it's been really fun to kind of watch him grow and get involved too. So, yeah, both will be missed.
Okay, well, consider a motion here.
I'll move to approve to accept the letter of resignation from Matt Sachs, special education teacher.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And then the second is Cassie.
I'll move to approve the acceptance of the letter of resignation of Cassie Smith, middle school 8th grade math teacher.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item C now. Consider the acceptance of the gift from Quick Trip and Packard Foundation for Prescott High School weight room upgrades.
So we have a team of 3. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Figge, our principal at Prescott High School, and then have the presentation.
Good evening again. I'm going to do a little introduction here. I'm excited to be introducing the opportunity and the presenter tonight. I think it's his first time presenting at a school board meeting, so be gentle with him. But the opportunity itself centers around our physical education programming and our strength conditioning programming. And one of the most integral people around that, potentially the most integral, is Mr. Hansen, who is one of our physical education teachers and our strength conditioning coordinator. You see, over the past few years, we've had a vision for our physical education and strength conditioning program. And this has been centered around creating more synchronous programming between our physical education classes, our speed and strength classes, our out-of-season athletics, our in-season athletics, and our summer programming. It spans not only 9 through 12, but oftentimes we have middle school students both during the school year and certainly in the summer who are coming up here. Our goals around this have been twofold. Number one, probably most importantly, we're trying to educate kids and develop lifelong health skills and functional fitness skills. And number two, we're striving to create a more seamless program to create athletic skills and athletes. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, oh, we did that in high school. There's been a shift over the past decade of not creating sport-specific athletes, but creating true athletes. And Mr. Hansen certainly showed his belief and embodiment of these goals as we went through his hiring process a year and a half ago. After his hiring, he was tasked with working toward making these goals a reality. And over the past year and a half, I'm proud to say that he's done a tremendous job. I'm excited for him to be here tonight, to be able to speak about the programming he started and work to make possible some of the things that we still need to do to make our goals a reality, and the opportunity that he has really helped make possible for Prescott School District to get us closer to these goals. This opportunity wouldn't only benefit students at the high school, but it would benefit all of our students, probably 6 through 12, boys and girls, both during the school day, during their instruction in physical education and health. Before school, we have a number of students who are coming in. After school, we have even more students who are coming in for speed and strength. And then certainly our summer speed and strength program is one of our largest summer school programs. So I'll let Mr. Hansen take over and speak about his program, this amazing opportunity, and some of the things that he's helped develop over the past years, as well as what's in store for us next.
Thanks, Mr. Figge. Like he said, I'm a PE health teacher here at the Prescott, and then also strength and conditioning coordinator. I've only been here for a year and a half, but our strength and conditioning program is growing, every day. When I first got here, we only had about 10 kids that were truly invested every day, and that number's almost tripled now and continues to grow. So very passionate in where we're headed and what we're doing. So tonight is kind of a presentation of how I think, as we're growing, what we can do to make a better experience for our kids that are here, and in not just before or after school, during our weight training classes. And today we had about 200 kids come through the weight room itself. We had 25 this morning. We have 2 weight training classes. When we pair up, when we have 2 PE classes at the same hour in the wintertime, we're not able to get outside. One class goes in the weight room, one class goes in the gym, and we flip-flop in between. And then tonight, after school as well, we had wrestling, girls basketball, and boys basketball all use the facility. So it gets used quite a bit. So a lot of this is, how can we move to a setting that fits a large group and be productive in that setting. So objectives today, kind of go over the space that we currently have and what it provides for us for large groups of students, and who we are serving, and what can we change that into to better support our current groups that we have. To create a facility that serves and further the instruction and strength and conditioning goals of our high school, whether that's weight training class, we try to make sure that what we're doing with our athletic teams and what we're doing in weight training class, what we're doing before school, we're just trying to build a better athlete in all those things and build a program that really fits all those students. And then, using the current weight room equipment that we have in a positive way. We have special ed students that use a lot of the equipment that we aren't able to use in a large group setting. They really enjoy using that stuff. For me, for being an adaptive PE teacher, we use that stuff quite a bit, and to make sure that we retain some of that stuff for them to use, I think is very important. Then we can also update some of the stuff we currently have at Malone Intermediate School as well. So kind of go through all that and then talk a little bit about the funding of the project and where we're at. So right now, kind of laid that out for you already, is we have quite a few students coming through, whether it's in summer school, we have very large sessions, or whether in the morning for our strength and speed in the morning, weight training classes during the day, or our athletic teams that are lifting at least twice a week. in the sport that they're in. So we have quite a few students coming through. Project overview, this is kind of what we're looking to evolve into. And this is the rendering that we got from Dynamic. So as you can see up here, there's a turf over by the windows that we would use for sled pushes. There is flooring that we have that would be embedded, so our platforms, as you see there with the Prescott logo on them, would actually be in the floor itself, not raised platforms that we currently have. And I'll show you here in a second some of the auxiliary equipment we have currently. We would transition to, two things that we feel fit, that would fit our kids' needs. Instead of having one of each, one of 6 different pieces of auxiliary equipment, we would get 4 of 2 different ones. Why do we want new equipment? Okay, we'd get expanded squat racks, so we'd be able to get more people through some of our core lifts. Right now we have 4 double half racks. We would keep those half racks that we currently have, and then as you see on the picture up here, as you see the racks that we would be getting, okay, those would be the ones that we get. Hopefully, down the road we'd be able to transition some of the newer racks and some of our old racks out, but just for fundraising purposes and money that we have available, we thought we'd keep those for now, and then just add 2 more racks so we have enough for there. So the cable machines are the 4 down here on the bottom right. We currently have 2 of those, but those are very, very important for our strength program. We can do a lot of different things on those machines, not just one thing, multiple things, and we have different attachments for them. The one you see on the left is inverse curl machine. This machine is huge for speed development and hamstring injury prevention. So right now we have 1 GHD machine, and it's really hard to teach kids on that machine when we just have 1 of it, and you're trying to make sure that everything else is going on in the weight room. This inverse curl machine makes it really simple. It's weight loaded, so that bar that's coming up that has that beam coming across, the students would hold on to that. We'd start out with some type, whatever their body weight is would be a good starting point. They would go down. You would not have to do a lot of teaching for this one. It puts them in a great position already, and it's huge for speed development, hamstring flexibility. I know Menominee High School put these in. They were having some issues with some hamstring stuff, injuries they're seeing in some of their sports, and that pretty much took care of it. So they're very very useful, and something I think that would help tremendously with all of our athletes and all the students that we have going through during weight training class. Our current design, as you can see back at the last slide there, is we have 6 different auxiliary pieces, and it's really hard to program those for our students when we have 40, 30 kids, 25 kids in there. To put that on a program, all of a sudden you have 6, 7, 8 kids lined up waiting to use the machine. So it's not very efficient for us. Right now, programming wise, we don't use those when we have large group settings. Like I said, the majority of the time, it's just our adaptive PE kids using those when we're working with them. So where we would have 4 of each, then we'd easily be able to program those. For programming purposes, we usually do A, B, and C. So we usually group a couple lists together, A, B, C, and you could do 1 lift at the platform, usually in a group of 3. You have 1 person doing the lift, 1 person spotting, 1 person could be over there doing one of the auxiliary machines. And then we also, what that rendering doesn't show is our dumbbell rack that we'd also have. So we have 12 different spots where students could lift. You could have 4 of them doing auxiliary at the dumbbells, 4 doing auxiliary at the inverse curls, 4 doing an auxiliary at the lat pull down. There's no wasted time. They're moving around efficiently as we go through our workout. Why additional squat racks? Right now we have about 4 kids per rack. We'd like to get that down a little bit just to get through quicker, and adding 2 more racks would help us tremendously to be able to do that. Also, the new racks have a lot of different accessories and different attachments that we'd be able to use that we can't use currently with our racks that we have. These ones come with band pegs and things that we would use for our power training that we currently can't use with our current ones. So right now, racks allow us for 24 or 16 kids. We like to get to that 24. So why new flooring? Our current flooring is 8 millimeters thick. It doesn't allow us to use any of the compound lifts on it, so such as your deadlifts, your power cleans. You can see down in the bottom right corner, we have to do those on raised platforms. So the new flooring, we would actually be able to do them on the flooring itself. If we wanted to use that space for something different, if we want to do some agility workout or anything on that flooring there, we would be able to use it. We're currently, with our raised platforms, we cannot. So our current flooring as well, our custodians have a tough time mopping it. When they try to wet mop it, it just turns right over. With the new flooring, it is easier to mop. St. Croix Falls just put in a brand new weight room with the same exact flooring that we would be getting, and they love it, and they say it's really easy to mop. They sent us a video on it as well, and how easy it is. So that's why we'd go with the new flooring. The product is from Ecor, and it's their Performance Beast floor. So again, there's the raised platforms. Why add turf? So our speed and development program, we do a lot of training with our sleds. We cannot do that in the wintertime, obviously with not being able to get outside. So that would allow us to do that during the winter months as well. You know, St. Croix Falls has similar things, and Menominee, and you know, just talking with those schools, they're able to do a lot of their agility stuff that they, you know, if they don't have any gym time or someone's using the gym, they're able to get a lot of that stuff done right there, and they can use that as a station as they're going through their workouts. So it's huge for our explosive training. You know, anytime you're pushing your sled and you're exploding, in any sport that you do, basketball, you know, volleyball, anything that you need that first step explosion, it helps, and that's going to help, you know, all of our athletes, but also create that, you know, hopefully increase that speed and agility for our students that are in our weight training class as well. Dynamic Fitness is the vendor that I kind of looked at. So when I was looking at, you know, our current weight room setup and who to go through, a lot of schools around us have been going with Dynamic. They're out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, so they're local. Anytime we need something or something breaks, or you know, if that were to happen, they're there to help us right away, and they've been great to work with. A lot of other schools in our conference have some type of dynamic equipment in their weight rooms. So Osceola, Somerset, New Richmond, and all of them have said positive things about them. Elk Mountain, St. Croix Falls just they added onto their school and got a whole new weight room added, and Dynamic went in and did that, and put turf in and put new racks in. I know Mr. Caudill, when he goes out to watch some sporting events, he's been to some of these schools, and he's amazed by the product that they put out. So our financial details of where we're at. So project costs of our new equipment is around that $37,000 mark. Flooring with the turf and the flooring is about $35,000, and then for them to install it, you know, is right around that, you know, $10,000, $11,000 mark, which brings us to about $83,500. Currently, kind of why we're here today is we've had some big time donors that have stepped up and wanted to help fund it. You know, with Quick Trip coming in, that was kind of one of the first people kind of looking to, and I just kind of laid it out there for them where we're at, what we're trying to do, and they were generous enough to donate $40,000 to it if the board accepts it tonight. We've had some pretty good fundraisers for our football team, so we would be able to donate $11,000 to it. Packard Holdings, that's another company that said that they would donate $10,000 to the project as well. And then other sports teams or other parents have pledged guaranteed, you know, at least $5,000. I'd feel really comfortable saying that today, if we were to accept all of our donations, we would have $66,000 towards the project, which is about 80% of what we need. So potential timelines. So just talking with Dynamic, if they were able to get the purchase orders in by the end of the week, January 14th, they believe they'd be able to come in and install during our spring break time, which is huge for us. Looking at our weight training classes that are happening at the time, our teams that are lifting at the time. There's no one in the building during that time, so it's a great opportunity for them to come in and be able to do it. I know the timeline's obviously short. It's this Friday, but if we look to wait, until the March date, then we're looking at summertime or taking a week off in the school year, which would really, we're already short on time, I think, with our weight training classes. I mean, we like to get rolling right away and get into our programming. Taking 1 week away from them, I think, would hurt a little bit, but would benefit us later as well. So any further date than that would push us into the summer or school year. So that's kind of where the timeline, where they fit, if we can get this thing done, where they said, where we could be. So biggest thing why we're here today is to see if you guys would accept the donations from Quick Trip, $40,000, and then the $10,000 as well from Packard Holdings, and then to answer any questions that you guys have for me.
Thank you, Jordan.
Pat, do you have questions for Mr. Hanson here?
I don't have a lot of questions. My kids, both my daughter and my son, have been keeping me well informed. They're quite excited about the opportunity here. I just, and then I'm excited to hear it with my fellow board members, but the donations are amazing. It's the result of good people doing good things. I think, Mr. Figge already alluded to the importance of athletics and health as part of our educational model. I believe in that as well, so I don't have any questions at this time.
Tanya?
I guess I don't have a ton of questions. I understand that we have fundraised enough, and your teams have fundraised enough to have about 80% of the funding. And so it sounds like the hope is that we would continue to fundraise and support it and stuff. If that was unable to happen, do we contract ahead of time? Do we come back to the board, or is there a few things that we don't purchase, or do we have kind of a contingency plan there?
Kind of just getting your thoughts on it, I guess,
Yeah.
as a board, to see where you guys are at on that. I mean, we're going to continue to fundraise as much as we can, and once our football fundraiser comes around again, we'll be willing to donate. But yeah, we're willing to keep going until we hit the mark, and hopefully we can get this thing done eventually.
Perfect. And then really, I just think awesome community members. We talk a lot about partners and partners within our community, and this is another really great example of kind of finding a need, finding an area of passion for community members, and really people just stepping up. And Quick Trip, who's new to our community, stepping up, as well as it sounds like your sports team's really fundraising. I too really believe in kind of that whole student, not just the academics, the health, the physical health, the mental, all of that stuff. And so I value this kind of programming. I think it's very important for our students. I like hearing that more students are assessing it than maybe what traditionally the student maybe was, the athlete or the male or whatever, I really like that we're having this more accessible to more and more students. Special education is a consideration here because there's some equipment they can't use, and I like that we're also talking about what we're going to maintain for our kids that need some more adaptive type equipment. So,
Yeah, I think for me, you love to see your athletes make gains and stuff.
Yeah.
But teaching, weight training this trimester, there's a couple girls in class that have just glowed on how much they've improved and how excited they are to be in class, and that's really made me proud.
yeah, that's really cool. Well, thanks for sharing this. For me, I can't imagine any reason that I wouldn't approve something like this. My only thought would be that carry over $11,000-ish and just making sure that we're not overbuying before we have the funds. So that's where I'm at.
Steve, questions?
So just to follow up on Tanya a little bit, you got about a $17,000 delta. Are you going to issue POs for part of this project, like less the flooring maybe?
Yeah, I think we would go with the equipment first, and then if we have to wait until the flooring for later, at a later date, then we'd go that.
And I'm wondering, Was it you, did you reach out to Quick Trip, for example, or did they come to the district?
No, we kind of looked at what we wanted. We got the renderings from Dynamic, and then that's when we started reaching out and kind of laying, here's our project. What would you guys be willing to do to help out if you're willing to help out?
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you very much.
Vicky?
Yeah, I was following Tanya and Steve, same thing, just make sure that we don't do a whole project and not have the funds to finish it. And yeah, so reaching out to Quick Trip, are there any other community members or businesses or anything along those lines that you've thought about looking and asking, or are there other donation avenues to follow?
Yeah, I think we're pretty new into where we're at. I mean, we just, in December, we kind of got this thing rocking. You know, we'll go those routes if we need to and keep fundraising for what we have and keep trying to find other donors, maybe even, you know, people watching now. Hey, that was pretty cool. Help out. And we had, you know, there's parents, you know, that keep coming up and say, hey, we're willing to give $1,000 here and there. You know, 66,000 is probably where we're at, just for sure. I mean, we might be more than that, but I felt comfortable with 66,000 up there, because I know that's where we're for sure at.
And I love that if the students are excited about this and they're talking to their parents and their parents are excited about it, that's good. Then it's definitely something that I think all students will benefit from.
Yeah, I get asked every day, you know, where are we at? It doesn't happen overnight.
Thank you.
Shay, did you have any comments on this one?
I think it's great that we're taking into consideration like our special education students. And I also know that a lot of my friends love lifting before, during, and after school. So this is a really great thing that you guys are doing.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, one additional point if I can. We've got a $40,000 amount, we've got a $10,000 amount per policy. Is that why that's at the board level tonight?
Correct.
Yep.
Right, I believe our policy is, what, five or more? 5,000?
They both are above the threshold that has to be approved by the board to accept.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jordan, this looks fantastic. The layout and everything, I'm really impressed with the thought and the designs are just really cool. And for the short amount of time you've been fundraising, wow, holy smokes. So great job on this. Maybe just one quick question, and I apologize if I missed this, but with the equipment in there now,
Yep.
where would that go?
So those racks that we have, we'd keep those 4 racks and then just get 2 additional racks, and then hopefully, you know, once we fund the project and down the road, if we have money, you know, from the football fundraiser or whatever we're using, hopefully to get more racks eventually. But those 6 auxiliary lifts that you saw, 3 of those for sure would go into building a sensory room for our special ed kids. So we'd use those. They have a bike up there that they use, but they're just looking for a little bit more space. And then we'd look at updating some of the stuff at Malone Intermediate School with the other pieces.
Okay, so we have places within the district where we can repurpose that
Yep.
extra equipment?
Yep. We looked at, you know, what would it look like to sell it, and it just didn't make any sense. We got a lot of needs that we need here. And to take any of those things away from our special ed students that love and enjoy those things, I think wouldn't be right either. So came up with a great solution to update a room down at Malone, also help our special ed kids, but also meet our needs for our P program and our strength and conditioning.
All right, well, thanks for the presentation. It was very informative and really cool, so thanks.
Thanks.
Board, I think we're here tonight to just basically approve a nice, significantly large donation from Quick Trip and Packard Holdings. So this is where we are. Any further comments or dialogue that we want to have on this before we move? All right, we can entertain a motion here.
I move to approve the acceptance of the gift from Quick Trip of $40,000 and $10,000 from Packard Holdings for Prescott High School weight room.
Yeah.
I second.
PHS.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further dialogue on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's get back to the business agenda. Thanks, guys. We'll move on to item D, PSD notice of open enrollment programs.
And I'm gonna have-
Due to DPI guidelines.
Yep, I'm going to have Mark Inouye. This is required by DPI on an annual basis of all school districts in the state of Wisconsin. And so I'm going to have Mark cover the information tonight.
Yeah, as Dr. Spikuza said, you might get a little deja vu from last January, because every January we do this. Every January, the school board is required to identify the number of general ed and special education spaces available. And unless specified tonight, all of our open enrollment programming is wide open. There is not a lot of change from last year. Essentially, it's all the same programming that we closed last year, with the exception of one item. So I'll go over that in a second. So the programming that we are recommending that we close, kind of based on student enrollment and our staffing, is our middle school and high school programming for students with significant needs, and then a number of services that we contract for. So currently, kind of due to the student numbers that we have, we contract with, I think it's CISA 11 for our visual impairment programming. We contract with Baldwin Woodville for our physical therapy programming. We're contracting, and this is new, with the River Falls School District for our deaf and hard of hearing programming. And then we contract with CISA 10 for our orientation and mobility programming. So I am recommending, kind of based on contract situations and then our student numbers and staffing, that we close those 6 particular programs. All other programs, special ed and general ed, I would recommend that we leave open, but those are the programs that I would recommend based on numbers that we look to close.
Tanya, any questions on this one?
Nope, just yep, we do this every year, and really this is not about closing programs within the residents of our district. It's really about families that are wanting to enroll within the district, and we're able to close programming or need to close programming when we're at a staff capacity that we can't support an open enrollment without hiring new staff. And so that's where we're at. We do this every year. It's really you're right, it's kind of all those contracted services and really unique needs. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Pat?
Mark, just one question.
Yeah.
The new change, isn't that we closed the deaf and hard of hearing program? It's that we're contracting with River Falls for that, correct?
So
Okay.
last year, we actually had a staff member on staff, Megan Burlingame, who
Yeah.
kind of served as a middle school special ed teacher and also did our deaf and hard of hearing.
Yeah.
This year, we don't have the luxury of having someone who's kind of got that dual license, so we had to go out and kind of have an agreement with River Falls
Okay.
to provide that programming for us.
Thank you.
Steve?
I just missed it. What's the EC stand for?
That's early childhood.
Thank you.
Vicki?
No questions.
Shay, any questions here?
Not right now.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
There's no dialogue here. We can entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the closing of the 2022-23 open enrollment in the following areas: high school program for students with significant needs, middle school program for students with significant needs, early childhood through 12th grade programming for students who qualify with visual impairments, early childhood through 12th grade programming for students who qualify with DHH service, deaf and hard of hearing, related service of physical therapy, all students, related service of orientation and mobility, all students, open enrollment for other areas of special education as well as K-12 regular education programming not listed above are open for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Move on. Item E, consider approval of the proposal to create a weekly 2-hour early release on Monday starting January 24th, 2022, continuing through the end of the academic year.
Yes. Tonight, Michael Kozmowski presented this at the board meeting on December 15th. That was put up on our streaming video. He is unable to be with us tonight, so I'll try to do justice. He told me he was watching the stream, so Michael, I'll take my best swing at this. I want to be very specific with regards to process and purpose. We did have it as information discussion. It is specifically driven for attempting to meet the needs of our teachers. As we described for everybody, COVID has not been kind to our staff, it's not been kind to our families, it's not been kind to our community, and it hasn't gone away. And a lot of time that typically our teachers have within the instructional day, within their work day, is consumed by needing to do internal coverage. Anybody that's been watching the news, reading newspapers, understands that there is a dramatic shortage with regards to substitutes, with the opportunity for us to have people on the bench to step in. And many of our teachers continue to do that on a monthly basis. And so you can see where we have done internal coverage among our teachers. That means they're giving up their prep time when they're usually collaborating with special education, collaborating with their grade level or content level teachers. In addition, our administrators, you heard from Mr. Igo and Mr. Figge about the number of days, and I think it was like under 15, that they have not been in a classroom covering for colleagues. So what happens when our teachers are spread thin is, yes, we do, and we're going to talk about a calendar for next year, is we do take and have increased the number of professional development days for our teachers. In addition, we have before and after school meetings. But when you have staff for the last 3 years have been working on thin staff, they've been working extra hours, they've been covering for each other, I think it's important, as we try to make sure that we balance the needs of all stakeholders, that our staff are also important to make sure that we're providing them the support that we can give. This support, the purpose, is specifically to allow us to address the academic model that has shifted from when many of us were in classrooms. And we talk a lot about, with our teachers, about what it looks like, what it sounds like, and what it feels like. And so as we start to look at making sure that the student experience has many times where it's learner-centered, we talk not just about, we talk about standards, it's about what we want students to learn, and we want to make sure that it's not teacher-driven, or teacher-centered, but it's driven about making sure that students are learning what's expected by our community, by our state, and national standards. In addition, what does it sound like? In the work world, what are we asking people to do in community, in business? And there's collaboration. It's very rare that you're doing the Lone Ranger type of work. And so it's ability to be able to be critical thinkers, to be able to ask, read, critique, debate. And that is from all grade levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. And then empowering. What does it feel like? And so that students have some direction about what they're able to do, how they engage, and there's a lot of differentiation that's occurring. That differentiation occurs through collaboration of our grade level teams, our content level teams, once you get up into the secondary level. And so this academic model has been continuing to evolve over the last 24 months and hasn't been always presented up into the boardroom because we have been pressed with other distractions around health and wellness. So why is it a premium in schools? And education has shifted. And as I've talked a lot about, is that we want to be the best at getting better. It's continuous improvement. Being able to, and earlier today you heard from Mr. Igo, is that they're already doing mid-year assessments. Our teachers assess our students at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and at the end of the year, and are doing constant assessments within the academic week. We know that we are standards-based, and so there are exams that occur at the end of every year that are based on grade level expectations that have already been vetted by our community, our educators, and the legislature for Wisconsin. We have aligned those standards, and we want to make sure that the baton passes across grade levels, from transition points, from buildings, from second grade to third grade, from fifth to middle school, from eighth grade to high school is seamless, and we spend that time at the end of the year in meetings. We also want to make sure that students have the opportunity to have multiple opportunities to demonstrate proficiency. We want to make sure that it's about learning, not about a grade. It's the continuous and expectation that we will do everything we can through enhancements, additional time, additional staff, and additional opportunities to ensure students are coming away with learning and making sure that they have a mastery of the grade level expectations. We also want to make sure that teachers have time as we are working with our students when we identify that there are gaps. There are always gaps, but with COVID, there are more gaps. We've been blessed as a community to be able to have kept our K-5 schools open all year last year, and you saw the results. When students are in front of our teachers, when our students are able to be on campus every single day, they performed extremely well. But we also know that every district has students that are performing at the lower end. Mark Inouye and Michael will be working with the board in February to share and unpack some of that data. Our lowest 25% performers, every district has somebody at the beginning, middle, and end of a distribution. We performed better than 93% of all students in the state for the students that were at the lowest end. Our goal in education is to take kids where they are and to move them to the next level. And that I'm very proud of our staff and our teaching and learning, our administration, for being able to do that. But that takes time, and that time has been commandeered by a lot of other duties. Our days have gotten longer. Our duty time has occurred from the time that students walk in the door, because we've had to place students to have breakfast in their classrooms. We've had to move students into multiple rooms, so now we need multiple additional staff for supervision. Last year, we did come to the board and asked for an additional early release. Again, this is not about mitigation strategies, about trying to lower the pandemic with regards to sickness or the passing. It's about giving teachers an opportunity in a workday not to have to go beyond their workday to do the work that they need to do to improve student performance. It's hard, and I know that our parents are probably just as tired as our staff are. So here are the frequently asked questions, right? Why are we doing it weekly versus monthly? And a lot of it has to do with the ability to have short cycle refinement and response to interventions. As students are making progress, it's not just about deficits, it's about extensions. You've heard at the high school level that we have adaptive scheduling. Students and staff are able to make changes within their day to get additional support. On Fridays, they are having extensions. We have programming on gifted and talented and extensions. Those types of activities take planning. And that planning time, we are asking the board to give our teachers that opportunity within their 8-hour day and not asking them to go beyond and do overtime after 3 years of dealing with COVID. Why Mondays? Regardless of the day we pick, we only have 5 business days. Sooner or later, it's going to be disruptive, and it's not going to be consensus. If I was to poll which day would families or students like, if they had to be forced, they'd probably pick Friday. But the reality is that this is really about supporting our staff and the work that they need to do so that they can improve the performance of students on learning. We historically did Monday, and the feedback that we got was that once it got implemented last year, tended to work quite well. It also allows us, it's not about planning for the week, it's about being able to adjust throughout the week in an interdisciplinary way. It also allows us that we know that 2 days over the weekend are when we are usually notified that a student will be out because they are sick, whether or not it's the flu, whether or not it's COVID, whether or not it's some family activity. It gives us the opportunity, and as Michael shared with me earlier today by phone, we had a student that was unable to be in school this week. Monday he was, and this is a 5th grader, emailed his teacher 15 minutes ahead and wanted to know where the link was to get onto Google Classroom. It shows you that it's becoming more and more standard for our students to understand that when they're not on site, but it's a work week, they are trying to engage in the learning that our staff are making available to them. So we did pick Monday because we had experience with it historically. It gives us the opportunity to make adjustments for anything that occurred over the weekend, and we realize that there's no perfect day to pick. 4K, Sarah Dusick is our principal of assignment for working with our 4K and child care centers. We do know that it is disruptive because they are on a 4-day schedule, although the 5th day is not free. It is a day that they're doing outreach and additional work, but students are not on site. It is my understanding that she and the process that Michael had put in place is that the 4K centers were notified. They've had an opportunity to discuss, as well as including St. Joe's. The classes would be adjusted, and the times would be 7:45 to 10 and 10:45 to 1. Special education. Obviously, we have put a premium on making sure that as there have been disruptions previously. Last year, we made an incredible strategic plan to make sure that our special education students were able to be on site even during hybrid. We continue to make sure that special education students are receiving their individual educational programs and that they're receiving the amount of minutes that are in that legal document. Last one, I think, is just about transportation. Why are we looking at transportation with a 2-hour early exit? For the most part, again, it's giving our teachers the time to be unfettered with regards to additional responsibilities. If all of the students are still in the building, there's going to be a need for additional supervision and the pull kind of at the heartstrings in their minds with regards to attention. Last year, when we were able to, the process included, and some of the parents that spoke during open comments, it shares with you is that all principals have communicated this information out to families multiple times. It's been communicated out through the board minutes. And so you have had an opportunity to get feedback from families, from our principals and our staff. The transportation, at the end of the day, we will provide at no cost supervision for any family that is unable to pick up their child. And so from the 12:50 last bell till 3 p.m., we would provide that supervision if the family is unable to pick them up. Since we only run our buses one time, they would be running at the 12:50 time to deliver the students home. And then the in-town child care centers that we have agreements with Hearts, Hands, and Mind and New Adventures, we take a shuttle and move those students to their child care, which families are already paying for, and so we make that adjustment. So specifically, you've had a lot of information. You had an opportunity to reflect on this. Again, we have many stakeholders. There is no perfect solution for the things that we're doing, but I do believe in the partnership that we've had with our staff. We've listened to our staff. They've brought this forward. We've worked with them through administrative procedures, and I do believe that it's in the best interest of our staff, being able to retain our staff and give them the time that they need to do the work that ultimately benefits our community and our youth.
Thanks, Rick. Let's start over here. Steve, did you have any comments on this one? Questions?
Just a couple. I want to appreciate the parents who spoke here tonight, last month. I think the board really appreciates the emails and phone calls that we get too. So thank you for that. I hate doing this, but sometimes I feel it's the right thing to do. But to avoid any appearance of bias or impropriety, I'm going to abstain from the discussion and the vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Vicki, any comments here, questions at this point?
I mean, my main concern is supporting the teachers. We know that we've got the input from the teachers. The teachers have been very vital in coming up with and helping design this idea and what they need and why they need it. I don't understand how it affects parents. I don't have children, so I can't really relate to that, but I just want parents to know that there's options available for them. I want to make sure that that has been communicated clearly from the building principals, which it seems that it has. But yeah, I just want to make sure that parents, if they need assistance, if they need help, if they need something, that they contact, their building principal to figure that out and understand. Because I don't want parents to be caught in the middle of this and not be able to be there for their kids, or I don't want kids to fall behind. So if kids do need extra help after in those 2 hours, I want to make sure that they're getting that if they need it and parents request that. But I really feel that the teachers are asking for this. We need to keep good teachers, and I really feel that we need to do this for the teachers.
Okay, Vicki. Shay, did you have any comments on this one?
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to clarify, for those that may be concerned about loss of instructional time, as a student, I believe that having this 2-hour early release will actually help improve our education. It's very obvious that our teachers are stressed right now. It's very difficult to get extra help from our teachers right now with how many classes that they're subbing for or what they're filling in for other teachers. There's just a lot of different things that are pulling our teachers from us right now, and that's just the circumstance we're in. But it's difficult to get extra help from our teachers right now, so having this 2 extra hours for them to collaborate, I think will be very beneficial for the students, because it will benefit our teachers an immense amount. So I just want to clarify that from a student perspective, I can see that our teachers are stressed and that they need this extra time. And I think even though our hours may be reduced, I think the quality of our learning will be highly increased.
All right, thanks, Shay. Tanya?
Yeah, I have a couple things. One, I just wanted to ask, and Rick, I think you probably would know the answer to this. If not, I can maybe find out the answer later. But these are conversations that we were having prior to COVID even, about having early releases. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so I just want to really separate that. We're talking, the pandemic has put a stress on it. It has put like an exclamation point on it. It has put all of that stuff on it. But these were practices that we were discussing to best support our teachers before COVID. And so I just really think that that's important. This is not a reactionary step. This is something that was a discussion.
Can I just,
yeah.
and it reminds me, and I apologize, obviously Michael's a little more facile with all this, but remember our high school
Yep.
had an early, late start every Wednesday. And these were pre-pandemic, when we shifted and had to do some things. Was it 3 years ago that we had to shift away? 2 years ago. So prior to that, the first 5 years that I was here, we had a late start, so that our teachers at the high school level, who don't have always the same opportunity to collaborate like we did at the elementary around grade level, that was a common practice. So although COVID is putting an exclamation point on it, it is about our academic model and historically what we were attempting to do, and then we had to hit pause. And so we wanted to get back into making sure that we are giving the opportunity within the 8 hours for that not to be on pause.
Another comment I wanted to make was just that oftentimes we ask for parent feedback, we ask for student feedback, and sometimes we ask for teacher feedback. And this is one of those cases that this is information that we're hearing from our leaders, our educational leaders, our administrators, our teachers, that they need this time and that they don't, and we have the data that supports it. I really, really appreciate administrators, you guys taking more time to put together data of lost hours of being able to collaborate, lost hours in classrooms. That's happening, Shay. I absolutely love your perspective from a student lens and knowing that our teachers and our system, and I want to be super clear, it's not just teachers. We're talking about special education teachers, we're talking about paraprofessionals or teacher aides, we're talking about lunch staff, we're talking about everybody is very stressed out right now. And that we're in a system that is losing a lot of people, and it's not unique here to Prescott. This is what is happening all over the place. And so I really appreciate that perspective that students can even feel that, and we know that systems are in a pressure point when our students or our customers are feeling that kind of impact. It is really important that sometimes we listen to what our teachers need, and this is one of those cases for me. I also want to point out a study. It's in 2018. It's by Hattie. It's called Visible Learning. If you're an education nerd or like studies, you know this study. It's a meta study of, I don't know, it's thousands of different studies, and it looks at the achievement, impact, various types of interventions and types of learning that have specific influence on student learning. And some of the top ways are responding to intervention, responding to student need, feedback. All of these are things that are not time in a classroom in front of a teacher that has not had time to provide feedback, that has not had time to look at a paper and provide analysis and meet and talk to a student. It's not stuff that can be done with a classroom as we look at responding to intervention, what we're going to do for the student, how we're going to work at that lower quarter or 25 percentile. These are all things that have to happen when students are not there. So much of teaching and education happens outside of the classroom. We have to carve time for those things to happen, or kids are in a classroom that haven't been purposely planned for because of a lack of time. And also, we talked about, and we have done this, where we've added additional staff development days, days where staff can learn. That's, to me, and I could be wrong here, but that's not what this is about. This isn't about learning specific new strategies. This is about collaborating, having IEP meetings, having team planning meetings. We've put so much value in having PLC leadership. I believe there's even a stipend for teacher leaders. This is incorporating or really putting kind of our actions behind our words in this and saying we value those things that we've been putting in place for years, so much so that we're going to make sure that we can still meet the needs of our teachers so these systems can continue. These are important things for students to continue with learning. I also want to acknowledge there is that COVID aspect here, a pandemic aspect, there is a burnout aspect. Those are also real parts of this as well. People are stressed out. We want to hear people. We want to make sure people have the tools that they need to continue working in this environment and staying with us. We do not want to lose staff. And then the most feedback I've heard, and this is me specifically, is about Mondays versus Fridays. I've asked that question specifically. I've asked more than one person within leadership, and really I've heard kind of the same messaging, which is like, teachers, we want teachers in the building. We want teachers to be here to collaborate. We want to have families have the opportunity to come in and collaborate as needed. And Mondays is really that day that people feel really comfortable with. So I trust the leadership in that's been vetted, that other conversations have happened about other days, and the leadership is falling on Monday. So I trust that. And then, there is the option to stay. The hardship is, like, of course, lack of time in front of a teacher, although I believe this will increase the quality of time in front of a teacher. But there is the hardship of leaving school 2 hours early. But we do have the ability for kids to stay after school at no cost with transportation. So parents shouldn't have to, if I'm correct, right, change work schedules around this or anything. Kids will still be here, they'll still be supervised, they'll still be doing activities that are important to child development, which is socializing and playing games and doing those things too. Those things are also important. So hopefully the impact on families is less, knowing that kids can still be here. So that schedule doesn't have to change. Those are kind of
Pat?
I echo a lot of the same, that Tanya has, and I know we spent, our information and discussion session was really last month, so we've been reviewing this and looking at this for multiple months. I do think it's an important enough topic too. I'm not going to repeat everything Tanya said, but she addressed some of my, big concerns, and we talked through the Monday versus Friday thing, and I completely agree with the rationale. We talked about the hardship on child care for families, and I believe, looking back at last week's notes, some of the polling that we did, we found 8% of families thought that there were obstacles cited, and I believe that the district has put plans in place to mitigate those and give families the options that they need, so that an early release day would most closely resemble a work day. The other issue was that I've taken the most probably self-reflection, but then also outside questions on is the learning gap, and I've talked to a lot of people. Some of those comments were also shared today, and they are valid. I also think it's logical when we remove students away from a teacher, it's logical that they're not learning, and so I do understand those points, and I do certainly respect those points. With that being said, and this was also mentioned today, we must support our people. We must support our teachers. And if we need to give them the tools and the time that they need to prepare, to collaborate, to just have a positive work environment, I have to believe that is going to best impact our students. It's going to be the best thing that will impact the learning gaps that we do have, and there are learning gaps. It will best impact the students who have fallen behind due to COVID, due to whatever else is out there. We must support our people. We must support our teachers, and that is the end of my comments on that, Mike.
Yeah, you guys really did a great job kind of articulating everything. I just, my thoughts, as a school board member / parent, we got multiple hats up here, and I take a lot of feedback from a lot of different people, and it does vary. I respect everybody's comments, number one. As a parent, I understand how it can impact a family that might have jobs that require them to be out of their house, and how that impacts them. So I truly understand where parents are coming from. And as a school board member, I'm looking at it from a different lens, where how does it help teachers? How does it help teachers with the community members in mind, with the parents in mind? Because I think it's a joint effort, right? This is where it gets difficult to make a decision, where we want to support our teachers and our administrators the best we can, and minimize the impact on the parents. The parents are the ones that are our customers, and they support us. So it's a balance. It really is, guys. I'll say a couple things. This proposal for 2-hour early release, to me, after hearing the presentation last month, taking it in and kind of thinking through it, it's almost a no-brainer to have the extra time. And in particular, because of how short we are on staff, the teachers are constantly covering for each other, and there's just no time during that window during the day to do the things that they may have been able to do somewhat before the pandemic, but now the pandemic has really, to your point, slammed the exclamation point on it that we need to get them more time. I don't think extending their work hours is a solution, because I look at it. There's teachers that stay after school with students. I'm living proof of it. That teachers have to stay after hours just to help students get through some of the challenges that they deal with. So they're already putting in more hours. So tacking on more to their plate and compensating for it isn't necessarily, in my opinion, the choice I would most likely line up with. I think we got to figure out how to make it work during the core hours of the day. My biggest concern, or my biggest question mark, is the Monday versus Friday versus Wednesday. What's the right day of the week? I will say this. When this was approached to me to be put on the agenda in December, it was discussed whether or not we should put it on the agenda as an action item in December, and I pushed it back to information discussion because I wanted the opportunity for us to kind of think about it for a month, get feedback from the community, and come back and make a better informed decision here in January. But the fact that it was presented in December tells me it's a need, and they need it now, soon. I don't think pushing it off any further. I think we need to make a decision tonight on it. However, with that said, Monday is a day that I would like to challenge at some point. Maybe not this year, but I know we got a calendar coming up to discuss, and I want that to be something that we challenge back to the administration. If this comes back for next year's calendar, which I know we're going to discuss, how can we challenge? Can we come up with different ideas? Maybe it's different per building. Maybe the high school has different ways that they can do what they need to do. Like it used to be. It used to be a late start at the high school. So maybe that works for the high school. Maybe we could do something different. So I know it's a different discussion, but I look at that as something for next year. This year we need to. I think we need to act tonight on it. So. With that said, the questions that I had about Monday that came to me from community members and concerned parents were around 4K. Can you go back to that? You got it up right there. Okay, perfect. The 4K impact was answered. Just really quick, Rick, the 4K normal start times, what were the normal start times on those Mondays for AM and PM classes?
7:45 and
7:45 was the AM, and then the PM was started at roughly just before noon.
7:45.
And then they got out 4 hours, so it would have been somewhere around 2. Okay. So what we're doing is we're basically shifting forward that PM class earlier in the day. So 4K, yes, it's impacted from a time perspective, but they will still get the same minutes, right? And then the other question.
Thank you, Tracy.
The other question that came up. Thank you. The other question that came up was special education and how that's impacted, Rick. And I don't know if there's any details we can share. You said adjustments to instructional schedules will account for the IEP instructional minutes. Is there anything to elaborate on there? So what we're basically saying is instructional minutes are getting shifted.
So you can do, it's just minutes on an IEP, so you can do those minutes anytime throughout the day. You're not tied to that specific schedule, so you might have to bump up some services. But that can change and should change, right? Like services aren't based on a schedule.
So basically, we are obligated. It is a contract, and so we have to be able to do that. But Mark, his team, and that's where those 2 hours can be a little bit more efficient, because sometimes we team teach, sometimes the programming can be administered in many different ways. And so special education has been on top of it. They've been working on plans. They did this last year, and I think they'll continue to work. And the family is part of an IEP. So by definition, they are part of the, they have to kind of sign off on how we're making these adjustments.
So your FAQs were pretty much lined up with all of the questions that I was getting feedback on, which is why we needed the extra month to kind of make sure we're making an informed decision, I'll say. So with that said, yes, I'm done. Mondays I work. I think they work best for teachers. I don't think they work best for parents. But we have to pick a day tonight, and I think with the amount of information, with the amount of preparation that's gone into the schedule, I think I support sticking with Mondays for the remainder of this year. I think, and if we decide to look at this for next year, then that's where I would challenge the administrators and the teachers to maybe come up with some different options for us.
Thanks.
All right. So with that said, is there any other comments?
Yeah, Mike, I had one. I was looking for my notes. Back to, and I hope I'm not going to put Mr. Figge on the spot right over here. He's looking at me like, you jerk. But so to address what I think is beyond the days beyond the day of the week, beyond that, is addressing the learning gap situation and the reduction of student time in front of the teacher. And I thought a really important note from last month when we talked about this was the potential opportunity for student-led or aide-led intervention time, and I hope I'm using that term correctly, at our building. So although the teachers may have an early release, those kids who need that intervention time or special one-on-one time, tutoring, if you want to call it that, will have those opportunities. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but I believe we talked about that is going to be a strategy, or can be a strategy, that will be deployed.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a tutoring program that students earn credits for tutoring others. So we've already been working to try to make that reality during that time.
Yeah.
I know a number of teachers I've already talked to have said, this is beautiful because we have 2 hours now where I can actually ask students to stay after school and give them a small group of one-on-one help and additional interventions to support them as well. So we've got a couple different opportunities that are on the table, at least for our group.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any comments? Any further dialogue here? Okay, well, let's take a motion from someone here.
I move to approve the administration's recommendation to implement a 2-hour early release every Monday starting January 24th, 2022 through the end of the school year. This time will be used to provide our teaching staff within the workday hours time to collaborate to support student learning.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Let's just do a roll call. Vicki?
Aye.
Steve?
Abstain.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. So the motion carries. Thank you, guys and girls. We'll move on. I'm gonna get my bearings here. Item F, consider approval of the academic calendar for the 2022-23 school year.
And Mr. Kozmowski is still not here, and so I will be presenting this, but I wanted to kind of remind people that this again was a major conversation at our December 15th board meeting. As I go through the presentation, I think you'll see that there was a continuation, and I'll walk through how the dates are identified, and I think as you will see, there may be information as we are proposing that the time that we're looking at for kind of early release, it was part of the conversation among the teachers and the staff and administration as this comes forward. So I want to make sure that that's clear. In addition, and so it predated COVID, and so that's why it's in there. Obviously, given that which day would be selected might be a concern, we'll walk you through that. I want to just thank our committee and our teachers for participating in this. Our administrators took time to make sure that there were multiple opportunities where our teacher leaders were able to then, after the board meeting, which was held on the 15th, our PLC teachers that represent all grade levels and all buildings met with Michael Kozmowski on the 21st of December. They gathered that information, and then they were charged with getting back to grade level teams, content level teams, and their other teachers to make sure that their input and the days and the priorities were considered. As you know, Michael has done a remarkable job of just trying to have surveys and making sure that the priorities of what the staff are looking for, and including parent groups, are put in place. But there are parameters. We are bound by a start date that is dictated by the legislature, which is September 1. We also have so many instructional minutes that we must meet, not instructional days, instructional minutes. We also have to make sure that it supports the programming that we're trying to put in place. We have trimesters up at the high school and kind of break out by quarters, so we're trying to load balance the number of days as the students would have different schedules. And so that is important, as every day that you pick up, turn on, or turn off, you have to make sure that you find another day that you turn on. In addition, we wanted to make sure that it continued this calendar to support many of the things that we've put in place over the years, and that is we have doubled the amount of embedded professional development days, and we wanted to make sure that it aligned with the Prescott vision our mission statement, and our academic model. In addition, we wanted to make sure that we continue to reach out to our 4K and also our parochial school, St. Joseph's. And so Chris McGee, the principal, has been included in the conversations, the updates, and some of the information. Now we're bringing it back to you. Just so you know, we did have our kind of key things of dates, both because of hunting season, because of Thanksgiving travel. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving has been something that has been a staple and continues to be number one. The group did review 4 different calendars, and we're bringing forward to you the one that by consensus had a preponderance of support, and Thanksgiving, having the Wednesday off on Thanksgiving was on all 4 of the models that they looked at. In addition, you know that we have parent-teacher conferences in the fall. There was a lot of questions because that's an extended time for our staff to be able to have some time off around that. Spring break was not a common factor within the district, but we are now created a trend, and I know Mr. Block might be happy to know that the week that was moved is a little bit earlier in March, and we'll explain why that's able to happen. Then the holidays do fall on a Sunday, and so I just wanted to make sure that you know that we previously started back on January 2nd on a Monday, and that's kind of a national holiday, and that kind of created some stir. So we made sure that the Monday after January 1st was off, and we moved on from there. So the calendar that is, I'm going to switch and put up the calendar and kind of walk you through both what the legend is. It's very similar in some ways to what we have, with a couple enhancements. So we'll go by, first, just to orient you, we have the calendar is broken by 3 columns, starts in August. Anything in kind of the orange or light brown are days that we are dedicating to professional development for our staff. So the idea would be our staff would be coming back in the late August, starting on the 22nd. We would have 4 in-service days. We would have the Friday off, gives them a 3-day weekend. Something that would now be the 3rd year in a row would be that we would have ramp up to school, which would be held on August 30th and 31st. That gives us an opportunity to kind of have our students have a smooth transition into the official start date. It also financially helps our district balance the books. And it specifically, since September 1st is on a Thursday, we wanted to be able to have basically a smooth entry into the year. So anything that is orange are professional development days. Anything that is yellow are vacation days. So as you can see, Labor Day in September, we have the day that kind of aligns with some of the Minnesota schools with the MEA weekend, the Friday of the 21st. In November, we would have the Wednesday through Friday off. For December, this was debated mainly because of the holiday for winter break, as whether or not some schools are going through the 23rd. We decided, and the teachers really wanted to support a break on that Friday, and so that was selected. You can see in January, the 2nd was identified. Spring break, you can see, is 13th through the 17th. The other thing I wanted to just kind of point out is that as you look at the calendar, there is a yellow square in every single month. And so there specifically the feedback was, and kind of the different variations, was February did not have a day off, and so the one that mirrored this, we kind of had a 1A and 1B, moved a day out of April and switched it over to February. So you can see that there's a natural break every month with a day off. And then in May, the professional development day was moved earlier in to May 1st. Usually we've had it later in the year. The reason that we were able to move the professional development day is that we have AP testing. So for our high-end students at the high school, there's a challenge of making sure that they're able to take those tests, and sometimes when our professional development day was later in May, it was a day off and they were having to come in and test on a day that they weren't necessarily assigned. So this calendar also gets us out by the first week in June. It gives a full, one of the feedback that we've had is that we run a summer program for all grade levels, but our teachers are usually the ones that are working it, and we have previously started the next week. This gives a full week off. So again, trying to balance the effectiveness of the instructional days, but also giving natural breaks throughout that support professional development, some time off without students, and breaks between summer and fall. The last thing I did want to, just again, the color coding, I kind of went through that with the jump start to the school day, the yellow are vacations. We did have, and I just wanted to be clear, is that in this calendar, it was baked in that if the 2-hour early release is becoming part of our academic model, that there would be a 2-hour early release, not just on the 17 Mondays that we just approved, but on 30. So I wanted to make sure that that was understood. What it does mean is if that is something that the board wants to move forward with, we would have to add 5 more minutes to our day so that we would have some flexibility if there were weather-related events. That 5 minutes was shared with our teachers. It was shared across all grade levels. It was presented to them as 5 and 10 minutes. They agreed that 5 minutes would be palatable. Elementary, our understanding is that it went quite well. For middle school, Mr. Igo, my understanding is that currently the exploratory versus core classes, the core classes have more instructional minutes. You would take those 5 extra minutes and put them into band, choir, and STEM to extend those. And that the reason that would be beneficial would be that those are the ones that you have a lot more transition time, getting out your instruments, getting into the woodworking, getting on computers. So that was an easy absorption. And Mr. Figge, my understanding is the 5 minutes would be dedicated more to the advisory period versus kind of dispersed across the day. So there were strategic ways that those 5 minutes, and my understanding is that it was pretty clear. Teachers were informed of it, and I'm not going to say it was 100% agreed, but I think understanding that there's a balance between getting something with an early release on 1 day a week and continuing that model, it would require the 5 minutes. So I'll be quiet. I'll be happy to answer. On the right-hand side is probably more detail than you would need, but it was our way of just verifying how many instructional days our students would have, how many contract days our teachers have, and then how it breaks into quarters and trimesters.
All right, just to kind of frame it so we can have a good discussion, we have the calendar as it is, and the calendar currently includes a 2-hour early release on every Monday. And with that 2-hour release on every Monday, we would have to add 5 minutes to every day.
That is accurate.
So if that were to get pulled out as a separate item, would the calendar look the same as it does today? Like with all the days, and I'm bringing this up because I think I want to try to get the board's take on the current calendar as it is, and then discuss the early release separately.
Yeah, my understanding is we would have, we would not need, if you're unsure of the early release or which day, the calendar would look the same, and the one exception would be we wouldn't have to add 5 minutes because we would be, we'd have more than enough instructional minutes.
Right, okay. All right, with that said, then I'm gonna let's go around the room. You can go over there. I'll go to Tanya. Do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, do you want me to separate my comments?
Well, no, just go ahead, but just note that, that they could be treated separately.
Okay.
We don't have to do it all at once.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple of things I looked at was our current calendar and the year before before, we had 171 teacher-student contact days. It looks that'll be the same. Am I wrong? You guys are looking. So 171 contact days. I think that stays the same as it has at least the last year. I think at least the past couple years. Does the staff contracted days change at all? 188?
No, that's within the range that we've been trying to hit.
Okay.
187, 188.
Okay.
And it does embed the 5 paid holidays.
Okay, perfect. So not much has changed in that sense. And then the commenting, I guess, on the early releases and the time. So, you know, I appreciate teachers taking that 5 minutes, and it sounds like buildings have thought through kind of how that might look, so it's not just slapped on to the end of the day, for a lack of a better way of saying that. And that equals about 20 minutes of extra contact time with kids, but then there's the 2-hour release. So teachers are still gaining about an hour and a half of time for meetings and time, because I assume that 5 minutes doesn't change like their contracted work hours. It's just 5 minutes less out of their afternoon.
No,
or
it
morning.
would extend. I mean,
Okay.
it would be another 5.
So what are their hours right now, for example?
They have an 8-hour day.
Okay. So it'd be an 8-hour and 5-minute day?
Or is it still within the 8? They would just lose a little bit of the end of day supervision?
I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. So the contracted time stays the same. It's just we're losing 5 minutes of time without kids, you know, I mean, or like planning time, but then we're giving them more on Mondays. So it ends up being a total of 100 extra minutes a week of time for planning and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it makes sense to me. I guess, Mike, when we talk about separating, I personally would rather, I don't care if we separate it or not, but I do like the idea of giving staff and leadership direction as well as families and parents, so they know well ahead of time kind of what we're thinking.
Right.
We can always bring it back if we had to, but I do like the idea of planning and being purposeful ahead of time. I hate to kind of put an intervention in place, or something in place, and then taking it away if it works.
And good point. Let me just clarify why. I feel like I know we talked in information discussion last month a little bit about this, but this is kind of the first, you know, hard calendar that we've seen that has it in here. And I didn't want to force the board to make a decision on this calendar as it is. And I think we can get to a point where if we agree that the calendar on its face looks good either way, with whether we do 2-hour release or not, we can get the calendar approved and maybe let this simmer for a month and come back. I got my personal opinion. I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. Is I would like to see another proposal for a different day and just compare the two and see what the pros and cons are of that. So Friday to, I know parents are obviously in favor of Friday. I'd be in favor of Friday as a parent as well. If that's not a good day to do it, then pick a different day. Wednesdays, districts have done Wednesdays. I would like to understand the differences between doing it on Monday and Wednesday, and if there's a pro and con that we can then at least make a more informed decision than just doing Monday, as well as if there's different needs for different buildings and early release works well in the elementary school on a certain day and maybe not so well at the high school or vice versa, whatever. That I'd like to challenge the administration to come up with an alternate view of what a 2-hour early release would look like at each building. So that's my rationale for pulling it out.
Okay.
And having separate discussion.
And for me, I'm fine with that.
But I agree with you that we want to give them as much lead time as possible and not make a decision in August.
Yep.
You know, I think we need to come back after we have more information and then be able to make a more informed decision.
Yeah, in administration, when you are, and if that's the direction we go in, which is fine with me, I guess I would just like to norm ourselves on the purpose of that time, right? So if the purpose is to provide teachers with quality time, planning for the week, all that kind of stuff, that to me is center. And to me, so Friday is better for families, but it takes away the effect for teachers, then that's not worthwhile for me. And so I'd be really curious of going back to that purpose, why we have it, and then what day meets the purpose the best if we're going to come back. Otherwise,
Agreed.
Okay.
Pat?
No additional comments. Nice job, you two. No, I think you guys hit my list. And Mike, if I understand what I think you're saying is we can approve the calendar as it sits tonight. We don't have to commit yet to an early release, yes or no, which would then affect the 5-minute lever to be pulled, right?
Correct.
Okay. No other questions for me.
Steve?
So it sounds like we need a little clarity on the 5 minutes and what that adds to the 8 hours or whatever the case, because I don't think we're 100% on that from the administration standpoint. The calendar overall looks fine. I'm trying to phrase this carefully, in regard to the 2-hour release, the board could consider bringing this back up in May or June once we see some additional impact for the rest of the school year, as the board has just moved forward with this, Mondays. Not saying that's the right way to go, but that's an option. So then we've got some more data from not only internal administration and teachers, but the families affected as well. Thanks.
Yep. Vicki?
Yeah, I like where Steve was headed with that. And to your point, Mike, we're looking at coming back with a 2-hour, reviewing a 2-hour early release, at least one day out of the week. What that day is, we don't know yet, and that's what we want to find out. What's going to work best, what is working best, what has worked best, where we're headed. So calendar, okay, I like the idea of coming back to that specific question.
All right, Shay, anything on this one?
Nothing on the calendar, just something to think about before you guys make a decision on that early release. I'm just kind of curious if, between building to building, if that time would need to be the same. Obviously, I just don't really know what that consists of, but if, the high school could do a different time than the middle school, that could do a different time than elementary school, I would just recommend maybe considering a late start for high schoolers. I know that teenagers have a hard time getting up in the morning, and brains don't really turn on until later in the morning. So I think that would be more beneficial than an early release for high schoolers, at least. But obviously, it's whatever is best for the teachers and administration.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. That's kind of why I brought it up, because I think there's different needs, different buildings could frame it up differently.
I think we have to, this is administration will come back with
Yep.
this, but also transportation. That is part of it. If we have, however many different buildings and different transportation cycles, some things just won't work.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so I get it.
And that's why I'd like to see a couple of different options. That's all I'm asking for. And I guess, as far as a timeline, I think, it'd be important. I know we want to have a calendar in place as early as possible. So I would look to the administrators as far as preparing, communicating with parents, what that timeline looks like as far as making a decision. I think we don't need to answer that question now. I would ask that you kind of go back and think about it a little bit. When do you need a decision by? How long can we wait? How much information can we gather in that time period to make a decision? So as far as the calendar, I want to say this looks great. You guys did a great job on getting days off every single month. Everything was hit. So I think that's the easy choice right there, is to approve the calendar as is, without approving anything with an early release yet. My comments. Anything else from the board before we move on? Can I entertain a motion then?
So do we have to modify because I think it's still pretty clear, right?
Yeah, right now, Rick, the motion reads as presented.
And it doesn't say anything on there, I don't think,
So
about it
I
early.
think there is on the bottom, there's the red box, 2-hour early release all Mondays. I think we gotta either call that out in the motion with the exception of the 2-hour early release, or remove it from the, I think we leave it, I think we just make an exception with the exception of the 2-hour early release on Mondays, is how I guess I would frame it up.
And the 5 minutes, because you wouldn't need the 5 minutes if you don't have the 2 hour.
Correct.
And then what I'm hearing is if you do that, you would still want us to come back with additional information that would include feedback from families
Yeah.
on dates and.
I think it's only, I think that's prudent. I think we should poll families and just get it, put something together that, of course, there's a preference, and then, you know, what would you be willing to support as well?
And it would have to hit, obviously, the intended purpose of why this is occurring, and probably a guiding change, because it also, as we talked about, we have a one-tiered bus system, so we'd have to make sure that it works
Yep.
within that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it has to be within the parameters of what we can logistically do.
Sure.
I move to approve the academic calendar for the 2022-23 school year as presented, with the exception of the 2-hour early release on Mondays and the 5 minutes extended to each day.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call here. Vicky?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
I just want to thank Michael, the administrative team, and the teachers. They have worked really hard right up into winter break and right after the break, and also for your discussion and feedback tonight. Thank you.
All right, that concludes business. Let's move on to information discussion. The first item is the school board spring election update on April 5th.
Yes, on April 5th, there are 2 things. There will be board elections. There are 2 seats available. The 2 incumbents are running, Mike Matzik and Vicki Rudolph, and there are 2 additional candidates, Eric Oy and Ken Anderson. That will be on the ballot along with the referendum on April 5th.
Short and sweet. I'll just say right now, Ken and Eric, I appreciate you guys stepping up and running. I think it's nice to see people stepping up and running. I know we disagree on things, but that's why there's elections, and I appreciate that there's people in the community that are willing to step up and run, because these are tough seats to fill normally. So to have 4 people run is, I think it's healthy for the community. So thank you. I'll move on to item E, superintendent update on COVID.
So, we got good news and bad news as COVID kind of comes in. One of the things, obviously, that a lot of people have had questions about, and that is with regards to the new regulations that have been approved by CDC. I'm very appreciative that this is now an option, specifically with regards to getting students and our faculty back into buildings as quickly as we can. So over the last, since March 17th of 2020, a lot has been discovered, a lot has been learned, and we know that there's a lot of different variants. And the variant that we currently are dealing with is obviously highly contagious. It is passing through our district and our community like forest fire. However, the implications is that the guidance is now saying is that families can leave quarantine. Again, schools don't quarantine. That is made by Pierce County, but they can return within 5 days as long as they are not symptomatic. Now, that we just got this today through our nursing staff. What Pierce County is recommending, that is in alignment with the CDC, is that families, a student is able to return on day 6, because day 0 is how they define when symptoms begin. You have to have 5 days of quarantine, and then if the family is agreeing, it's a 2-part process. If you're not symptomatic and you're willing to wear a mask, you're allowed to come back into the program. Families that aren't willing to do that then would stay out the 10 days unless they test early and are no longer symptomatic, I think is day 7. So basically, the only change in the process is that there is an earlier return. And this basically, again, is the guidelines that are being put out by Pierce County. The other thing I wanted to do is just update our community. As you know, we have information on our website. We have had a testing center on site and has been highly used. We currently, the state of Wisconsin has run out of the antigen tests for districts. We have an outside acceleration lab. They will notify us when the antigen tests are back. That's the rapid test. It is available now and also no longer necessary for the PCR to be the indicator of coming back to our school. The PCR test is still available, so anybody that is within our community or within the school district is still able to participate in a no-cost testing on a PCR that is held here at the clinic at Prescott High School.
Any questions or comments from the board on this?
No, I like this flow chart though. I used it last week. It was handy.
All right. Anything on this side, anyone?
Nope.
Okay. All right, I think we're gonna move on. I gotta get back to the business items. So I think that's it for information discussion. All right, we are gonna move on to item 10, recognition of visitors. Is there anybody in the audience here to be recognized?
Ken Anderson, Clifton Township. With the early release, I think that everyone, I don't think you're going to find people that don't support teachers. I think one of the questions that I had is if we're going to, if less is more, I think it would have been good to tell the community what happens in those 2 hours every Monday that is going to improve and support the teachers. What is going to be happening so that we see that it is a benefit to the students and the academic level. Another thing I'd like to say is the $15 million referendum that is coming up. I would question just if that is the top priority within our district right now, rather than spending some additional funds to help support staff and retain and attract staff to at the highest level here in our district. And my last question would be, if the community grants the $15 million for the maintenance issue, we know that a majority of the years in this school district, we go over budget with levy cap override. So I would just wonder, I just question, if we get caught up in maintenance with this $15 million, how can we be assured that we will keep up with maintenance in the future so that we don't go over budget 8 out of 10 years and then be $15 million behind in maintenance costs? So thank you, and thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Hi guys. So a couple questions here for you. With regards to adding additional time to the workday, if that's in addition to the 8 hours, so that means then that the teachers are going to be working over 40 hours a week, thus creating overtime?
The extra 5 minutes you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I asked that and we're getting more clarity on it, but it doesn't sound like it.
Secondly, when you guys sent out the survey for what people's preference was for what happened to the kids, is there a reason why you haven't sent out a survey asking for parent involvement as to whether or not they were for or against the early release?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Was there a reason why you guys haven't sent out that same survey asking if the parents of the district were for or against the early release?
The survey that the parents went, or that the teachers took? Or?
No, you sent out a survey to all of the parents, the school district did, asking what parents' choices were for after-school activities for children. My question is, why haven't you asked the same survey asking parents whether they were for or against a 2-hour early release to make sure that you guys aren't, potentially way off track and doing something that the majority of parents would be against.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky slope to get into a debate on this one.
Is that something you would be willing to do at least?
I'm not sure what is the question, surveying the
So
parents?
asking about, if I understand correctly,
Right.
asking about parent perception of the 2-hour early release.
Yep.
And it sounds like we are going to do that before we approve for next year calendar.
For next year's
Correct.
calendar.
Yeah, that's what I think
But
we were directed to.
what you're asking is why we did it ahead of time, and I think Dr. Spahuzza could probably talk to Mr. Kozmowski and get you a better answer.
Okay.
But moving forward, we plan on doing that.
Okay, so before we were to adopt this, you guys would be sending that survey out to be able to gather
For
whether
the
or not.
school, for the next academic school year.
Correct.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
That's what we're asking for.
Okay. And then it had already kind of got brought up before, again, if what we're running into is a teacher shortage, why isn't there more of an effort being put on increasing salaries, whether it be drastic, even a $5 an hour increase, if that were to keep our students in the classroom, keep our teachers so that they are less stressed, and overall provide it to an atmosphere where we are the envy of all the other cities in the area because we're doing it the right way.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
those were my couple ideas.
Anybody else care to be recognized? All right, we'll move on to item 11. We need a motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.